The stars changed that Tuesday morning in ways that nobody on Earth expected. Dr. Helen Carter sat in her chair at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Puerto Rico, drinking her third cup of coffee and watching the usual boring data streams from the outer solar system. The numbers on her screens showed the same peaceful emptiness they had shown for the past 15 years since the station went online. Asteroid positions, solar wind patterns, and the slow dance of distant planets all moved in their predicted paths. Then, the readings went completely insane. Helen nearly dropped her coffee cup as gravitational sensors began, screaming warnings across every monitor in the facility. The numbers climbing on her screen made no sense at all. Something massive had just appeared at the edge of their solar system, beyond Pluto's orbit. Not one something, but many somethings, each one showing mass readings that her equipment had never been designed to measure. She ran the diagnostics 3 times, hoping for equipment failure. The sensors worked perfectly. Whatever had arrived out there was real, and it was bigger than anything humanity had ever imagined possible. Helen grabbed her phone and called Director Paul Martinez, who answered on the second ring with his usual grumpy morning voice. She could barely keep her words steady as she explained what the sensors were detecting. Martinez went silent for almost 30 seconds before telling her to lock down the facility and call nobody else until he arrived. While Helen waited for her director, she kept staring at the impossible readings. 200 objects, each one roughly the size of Earth's moon, had somehow appeared in space without any warning. They had not traveled there. They had not been detected approaching. They had simply materialized as if someone had switched on a light in the darkness of space. Martinez arrived 20 minutes later with a face pale as winter snow. He looked at Helen's data for exactly 47 seconds before picking up the red phone that connected directly to the Pentagon. The conversation was brief and filled with words like immediate and highest priority and get the president. 3 hours later, President Jake Morrison sat in the White House Situation Room, staring at satellite images that his advisors had pulled from every telescope humanity possessed. The objects were clearly artificial. They had smooth metallic surfaces that reflected starlight in patterns no natural formation could create. Each ship stretched for hundreds of miles in length, shaped like massive spears pointed directly at Earth. General Kevin Scott, the man responsible for Earth's defense, stood beside a holographic display showing the alien formation. His voice remained steady, despite the impossible situation they all faced. The ships had maintained perfect formation since their arrival, moving slowly but steadily toward the inner solar system. Based on their current speed, they would reach Earth's orbit in approximately 18 hours. Morrison asked the question everyone in the room was thinking. Have they tried to communicate with us? The answer came from Sarah Williams, head of the Global Communications Array. Nothing, sir. We've broadcast on every frequency we know, in every language we have, using every mathematical and scientific principle we can think of. Complete silence from their side. Admiral Lisa Park, commander of the United Earth Defense Force, stepped forward with her own grim report. Mr. President, our entire fleet consists of 47 vessels. Our largest ship, the UES Defiance, is roughly the size of a football stadium. These alien ships are each the size of Manhattan. Our most powerful weapons are antimatter torpedoes, and we have exactly 231 of them in our entire arsenal. Morrison felt the weight of 7 billion lives pressing down on his shoulders. What are our options, Admiral? Park's expression showed exactly how few options they actually had. We can evacuate key personnel to the Mars colonies and the bases on Europa and Titan, maybe 50,000 people if we use every available transport. Or we can fight with everything we have and hope these aliens are more interested in talking than destroying. General Scott pulled up tactical displays showing Earth's defensive positions, orbital platforms with particle beam weapons, lunar missile bases, and the fleet itself scattered across near-Earth space. It looked impressive until someone remembered that their enemies commanded ships that could crush cities just by landing on them. Dr. Helen Carter, who had been brought to Washington as the person who first detected the alien arrival, raised her hand nervously. Mr. President, there's something else you should know about these ships. Morrison nodded for her to continue. They're charging weapons. Energy readings from their hulls have been increasing steadily since they arrived. Based on the power curves I'm seeing, each ship will be capable of delivering the equivalent of a solar flare directly to any target they choose. They could burn our atmosphere away or crack the planet's crust if they wanted to. The room fell silent except for the quiet hum of electronic equipment. Morrison looked around at the faces of Earth's greatest military and scientific minds, all of them wearing expressions of barely controlled fear. How long before their weapons are fully charged? 14 hours. Sir? Morrison stood up slowly, feeling older than his 58 years. Admiral Park, prepare the fleet for combat. General Scott, begin immediate evacuation of essential personnel to off-world colonies. Dr. Carter, I want you monitoring every signal from those ships. If they so much as hiccup, I want to know about it. As the meeting broke up and people scattered to their desperate preparations, Morrison remained in the Situation Room, staring at the display showing 200 alien ships moving toward Earth like harbingers of the apocalypse. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was the worst possible outcome they could have imagined. The aliens had come without warning, without demands, without any attempt at peaceful contact. They had arrived with weapons designed to destroy worlds, and they were pointing those weapons directly at the only home humanity had ever known. In 14 hours, Earth would discover whether the human race was strong enough to survive first contact with a hostile alien civilization, or whether 7 billion people were about to become another forgotten species in the vast darkness of space. The president of Earth sat alone with the terrible knowledge that tomorrow might not come for anyone he had sworn to protect. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with the cold satisfaction of a predator studying trapped prey. The third planet of this unremarkable star system rotated slowly on his screen, showing the blue and green colors that indicated a living world. His fleet had emerged from hyperspace exactly on schedule, and the mission parameters remained unchanged from the thousands of similar operations he had conducted across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire had perfected the art of planetary sterilization over the course of 3 millennia. They had learned that allowing primitive species to develop beyond their homeworld only created future problems. Better to eliminate potential threats while they remained weak and scattered across a few worlds in their birth system. Kethvar reviewed the intelligence reports his scouts had gathered over the past year. The species that called itself human had somehow managed to establish colonies on 3 other worlds in their system. Mars hosted roughly 2 million individuals in underground cities. Europa maintained research stations with perhaps 50,000 people. Titan housed mining operations and another 100,000 colonists. Impressive for such a young civilization, but ultimately irrelevant. The alien admiral activated his communications console and contacted his fleet commanders. All vessels report weapons status. Captain Zethmore of the Destroyer Squadron responded first. Particle disintegrators charging normally, Admiral. Full power in 11 hours. Captain Velthar commanding the heavy cruiser wing followed. Planetary bombardment systems at 60% charge. Atmosphere incinerators will be ready on schedule. One by one, all 200 ship commanders reported the same message. Their weapons would reach full charge in exactly 11 hours, at which point they would begin the systematic destruction of every human settlement in the solar system. The operation would take approximately 6 hours to complete, leaving nothing but molten rock and poisoned atmosphere. Kethvar felt no emotion about the coming destruction. His species had abandoned such weaknesses long ago, replacing biological limitations with technological perfection. The Zephyrians had evolved beyond the need for mercy or compassion. They were the galaxy's apex predators, and apex predators did not negotiate with their food. The tactical officer reported movement from the inner system. Admiral, the local species has launched their primitive fleet. 47 vessels approaching our position. Kethvar examined the sensor readings with mild interest. The human ships used fusion reactors for power and chemical rockets for propulsion. Their largest vessel measured roughly 800 meters in length. By Zephyrian standards, they were barely more advanced than sailing ships powered by wind. What weapons do they carry? Kethvar asked. Kinetic projectiles, nuclear warheads, and some form of antimatter explosive device. Maximum destructive yield appears to be equivalent to a small volcano. The admiral almost felt insulted. His flagship alone could withstand the combined firepower of their entire fleet without suffering meaningful damage. The energy shields protecting each Zephyrian vessel could absorb the explosion of a star without failing. Meanwhile, Captain Ben Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien armada grow larger on his main display. Every few minutes, his tactical officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, updated their combat analysis, and every update painted a grimmer picture of their chances. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures that don't match anything in our database," Foster reported. "Each alien ship is generating power levels equivalent to a fusion reactor the size of a city. Their weapons appear to be charging some kind of directed energy system." Rodriguez had commanded Earth's flagship for 7 years, fighting pirates and rebels who threatened the outer colonies. He had won every engagement through superior tactics and crew training. Against these aliens, tactics seemed meaningless when the enemy possessed technology that humans could barely comprehend. "How long until we reach firing range?" Rodriguez asked. 43 minutes at current speed, sir." The captain opened a channel to his fleet. 26 destroyers, 14 cruisers, 5 battleships, and 2 carriers filled with fighter craft. Humanity's finest warships, crewed by the best people Earth had ever produced. Against any human enemy, they would have been unstoppable. "All vessels, this is Defiance. We know the odds we're facing. We know our enemy is stronger than us, but we also know that 7 billion people are counting on us to buy them time. Every minute we keep these aliens busy is another minute for our families to reach safety." Rodriguez paused, looking around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Young men and women who had joined Earth's Navy to explore the stars and protect human colonies. Now they faced an enemy that could erase their entire civilization. "We're not fighting to win today. We're fighting to make sure humanity has a tomorrow. All ships, attack formation Delta. Prepare to engage the enemy." The human fleet accelerated toward the alien armada, their fusion drives pushing them to maximum speed. Rodriguez knew they were flying into a battle they could not win, but surrender was not an option. If Earth was going to die, at least it would die fighting. Admiral Kethvar watched the approaching human ships with something resembling amusement. "Maintain course and speed. Do not return fire until they attack first. I want to observe their primitive tactics." The first human missiles launched when the fleets were still 2 million kilometers apart. Chemical rockets carrying nuclear warheads streaked across space toward the alien formation. The Zephyrian point defense systems tracked each incoming weapon with casual efficiency. Energy beams that could slice through starship armor eliminated every missile long before they reached their targets. The humans fired again, launching their precious antimatter torpedoes in a desperate alpha strike. Once again, the alien defenses proved impenetrable. Captain Rodriguez watched his best weapons disappear without causing any damage to the enemy fleet. "All ships close to minimum range. Prepare for ramming speed." Lieutenant Foster stared at her captain. "Sir, at this range their return fire will—" The alien response came before she could finish her sentence. One Zephyrian destroyer fired a single energy blast that struck 3 human ships simultaneously. The UES Marathon, UES Victory, and UES Ranger simply vanished, their hulls vaporized by temperatures that exceeded the core of Earth's sun. Rodriguez felt his ship shake as debris from the destroyed vessels struck his hull. In one shot, the aliens had demonstrated the vast gulf between human and Zephyrian technology. But as the captain watched the sensor readings, he noticed something his enemy had not intended to reveal. The energy blast had created a distinctive pattern of radiation, and that pattern showed structural resonances in the alien ship's hull. For just a moment, the Zephyrian destroyer had been vulnerable. President Morrison watched the battle report streaming into the White House Situation Room with growing horror. 3 human ships destroyed in the first exchange, 7 more damaged, and the alien fleet had barely noticed the attack. Admiral Park's voice crackled through the communication system as she coordinated the retreat of Earth's battered forces. "Mr. President, we need to fall back and regroup. Our weapons are having no effect on their shields, but Captain Rodriguez reported some kind of energy fluctuation when they fired. We might have found something." Morrison turned to Dr. Helen Carter, who had been analyzing every scrap of data from the engagement. "Doctor, what did we learn?" Carter pulled up holographic displays showing the alien weapon discharge. "Sir, when their destroyer fired, it created a specific energy pattern. For approximately 2.3 seconds, their hull showed resonance frequencies that suggest structural weak points. The problem is reaching those weak points with our current weapons." General Scott leaned forward, studying the data. "If we can't punch through their shields with our biggest guns, how do we exploit these weaknesses?" "We need to get inside their defenses," Carter replied. Their point defense systems are designed to stop large projectiles and energy beams. But what if we could get something smaller past their sensors? Morrison felt a flicker of hope for the first time since the crisis began. What are you thinking, Doctor? Before Carter could answer, a new voice joined the conversation through the quantum communicator. Patricia Wells, chief engineer at Mars Colony, had been monitoring the battle from the Red Planet's orbital stations. Mr. President, we've got something here you need to see. The main display switched to show Patricia standing in a laboratory surrounded by twisted metal and strange crystalline components. Behind her, teams of technicians were carefully examining pieces of alien technology. During the first engagement, debris from the alien ships scattered across a wide area. We managed to retrieve several pieces before they could self-destruct. What we found is remarkable. Patricia held up a small device that pulsed with internal light. This appears to be some kind of neural interface. The aliens use direct brain-computer connections to control their ships. But here's the interesting part. Their quantum computers are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Dr. Carter sat up straighter. What kind of frequencies? The same frequencies generated by human neural implants. It seems like the aliens have never encountered a species that uses direct brain-computer interfaces the way we do. Their systems literally can't process our neural patterns. Morrison felt pieces of a desperate plan beginning to form in his mind. Are you saying our neural implants could disrupt their technology? More than disrupt, Patricia replied. I've been running simulations based on the alien computer fragments. Human brain patterns create cascading errors in their quantum systems. We could potentially blind their sensors or even take control of their ship functions. General Scott was already thinking tactically. How close would someone need to get to their ships? Inside their hulls. The effect only works at short range, maybe 50 meters from their main computer cores. The room fell silent as everyone realized what Patricia was suggesting. Someone would have to board an alien vessel, get past whatever security they possessed, and somehow reach their control systems while carrying human neural implants. Admiral Park's voice came through the communicator. Mr. President, I've been listening to this conversation. We have 12 pilots with experimental neural interfaces in our fighter squadrons. If we could get them aboard alien ships. Morrison looked around the room at his advisors. How would we even get close enough to board their vessels? Dr. Carter was studying the debris analysis from Mars. Their sensors are incredibly sophisticated, but they're designed to detect known threats. What if we use their own technology against them? Patricia understood immediately. We could modify the alien fighter craft in our debris field. Strip out their weapons, install human control systems, and use them as Trojan horses. General Scott shook his head. Even if we could modify alien ships, their pilots would need to learn completely foreign technology in a matter of hours. Not necessarily, Patricia replied. The neural interfaces work both ways. With the right modifications, a human pilot could interface directly with alien ship systems. Their brain patterns would confuse the alien sensors while giving them control of the spacecraft. Morrison made the decision that would determine humanity's fate. Do it. How long do you need? 6 hours to modify the alien fighters. Another 2 hours to brief the pilots and install the neural interface upgrades. Admiral Park's voice cut through the planning. Sir, the alien weapons will be fully charged in 8 hours. If we're going to try this, we need to move now. Morrison opened a channel to Captain Rodriguez, who was still commanding the human fleet's fighting withdrawal. Captain, we're sending you a new mission profile. You'll need to keep the aliens occupied while our boarding teams prepare. Rodriguez's reply came through bursts of static as his ship dodged alien fire. Understood, Mr. President. We'll give you all the time we can. On Mars, Patricia Wells worked frantically with her engineering teams to modify the captured alien fighters. The technology was unlike anything humans had ever encountered, but the basic principles of flight and propulsion remained universal. More challenging was integrating human neural implants with alien computer systems. Dr. Carter arrived at Mars Colony aboard the fastest transport available, bringing with her the latest research on human brain patterns and electromagnetic field generation. Together, she and Patricia developed a way to amplify the neural static that human implants naturally produced. The volunteer pilots arrived 3 hours later. Jake Turner, Maria Santos, Chris Bell, and 9 others, all experienced fighter pilots with the latest neural interface technology implanted in their brains. They would fly modified alien ships through the enemy formation, hoping their brain patterns would create enough sensor confusion to reach the command vessels. Jake Turner stood in the briefing room, looking at technical displays he barely understood. So we fly alien ships that we've never seen before, using technology that might kill us to board enemy vessels the size of cities, and somehow take control of their computers with our thoughts. Patricia nodded grimly. That's an accurate summary, yes. Maria Santos, the squadron's most experienced pilot, raised her hand. What happens if the neural interfaces don't work the way we think they will? Then you'll probably die. And Earth will be destroyed in approximately 4 hours, Dr. Carter replied with brutal honesty. Chris Bell looked around at his fellow pilots. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds like a pretty standard Tuesday mission. The pilot spent the next 2 hours learning to interface with alien flight controls while engineers made final modifications to their spacecraft. Outside the laboratory windows, the Zephyrian fleet continued its steady approach toward Earth, weapons charging with the power to burn away atmosphere and crack continents. Humanity's last desperate gamble was about to begin. The modified alien fighters launched from Mars Colony as Earth's main fleet engaged the Zephyrian Armada in what appeared to be humanity's final battle. Captain Rodriguez pushed his remaining ships forward in a desperate assault, drawing the aliens' attention while Jake Turner and his infiltration team approached from an unexpected angle. Turner sat in the cockpit of his captured alien fighter, feeling the strange neural connection between his brain and the ship's quantum computer systems. The interface felt like ice water flowing through his thoughts, cold and alien but somehow responsive to his commands. Behind him, Maria Santos and Chris Bell flew in similar fighters, their own neural implants creating electromagnetic chaos that scrambled Zephyrian sensors. Admiral Kethavar watched the human fleet's suicidal charge with growing impatience. These primitives fought with determination but lacked any strategic thinking. Their ships exploded against his shields like insects against armor plating, achieving nothing except their own destruction. All vessels, maintain formation and continue charging primary weapons, Kethavar commanded. These humans are simply prolonging their inevitable extinction, Captain Zethmore reported from the destroyer wing. Admiral, our sensors are detecting some unusual electromagnetic interference. Nothing threatening, but the patterns are unlike anything in our databases. Kethavar dismissed the report with barely a thought. After 3,000 years of conquest, the Zephyrian Empire had encountered every possible form of primitive technology. Whatever crude jamming devices the humans were using would have no effect on properly shielded Zephyrian systems. Jake Turner heard Patricia Wells's voice through his neural communicator as his fighter approached the alien command ship. Jake, remember that their internal sensors are quantum-based. Your brain patterns should create blind spots in their detection grid, but only if you stay close to their computer cores. The alien flagship loomed ahead like a metal mountain, its hull stretching for hundreds of miles in every direction. Weapon ports the size of stadiums glowed with building energy, and shield generators created a shimmer of distorted space around the massive vessel. Turner had never felt so small in his entire life. Maria, Chris, you reading me? Turner whispered into his communicator. Loud and clear, Jake, Maria replied. My neural interface is going crazy. I can actually feel their computer systems trying to process my brain patterns. Chris Bell's voice came through with static interference. Same here. It's like trying to pour water through a screen door. Their sensors keep losing track of us. The three human pilots guided their alien fighters toward docking bays that sensors showed near the command ship's center. Turner felt sweat running down his face as automated defense systems swept past them without triggering alarms. Dr. Carter had been right about human neural patterns creating confusion in alien computers. Inside the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethavar stood before a massive display showing the tactical situation. His fleet had destroyed half the human vessels with minimal damage to his own forces. In 2 hours, his weapons would reach full charge and the systematic destruction of human civilization would begin. A junior officer approached with sensor readings. Admiral, we're detecting minor system fluctuations in sections 7 through 12. Nothing critical, but our quantum computers are reporting processing errors. Kethavar barely glanced at the report. Run a diagnostic and report any significant problems. These humans are probably using some form of electronic warfare. What the Admiral did not realize was that Jake Turner had successfully docked his fighter in Base 7, Maria Santos had reached Bay 9 and Chris Bell was approaching Bay 12. The electromagnetic chaos generated by their neural implants was spreading through the ship's computer network like a virus, creating cascading failures in systems that had operated flawlessly for centuries. Turner moved through the alien corridors with his weapon drawn, following the route Patricia Wells had mapped from studying the debris fragments. The hallways were enormous, designed for beings much larger than humans, and everything was made from the same strange metal that seemed to absorb light. His neural implant guided him toward the ship's central computer core, creating interference patterns that turned security sensors into useless static generators. Turner passed automated guard stations that should have detected his presence, but instead sat dormant, their circuits overwhelmed by electromagnetic noise his brain produced. Meanwhile, Captain Rodriguez continued his desperate battle against the alien fleet, knowing that every minute bought time for the infiltration mission. His ship, the UES Defiance, had taken severe damage but remained functional. Around him, the last remnants of Earth's Navy fought with the fury of condemned men. Captain, we're down to 30% hull integrity, Lieutenant Foster reported. Port fusion reactor is offline, and we've lost most of our forward weapons. Rodriguez watched another human ship explode on his tactical display. They had started with 47 vessels. Now only 12 remained operational, and those were all heavily damaged. But the aliens had not noticed the real threat creeping through their flagship's computer systems. Jake Turner reached the entrance to the Zephyrian command ship's central processor, a massive chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with quantum energy. The neural interface Patricia Wells had installed in his brain felt like it was on fire as it interacted with alien technology beyond human comprehension. Patricia, I'm at the core, Turner whispered. What do I do now? Wells's voice crackled through the neural link. Remember the feedback amplifier we discussed? Your brain patterns are already causing chaos in their systems. Now you need to amplify that chaos and spread it throughout their entire network. Turner placed his hands on what appeared to be a control interface, feeling electricity shoot up his arms as his neural implant connected with the alien computer core. The sensation was indescribable, like trying to think in a language that had never been invented by any species anywhere in the galaxy. Admiral Kithvar felt his first moment of concern when half the lights on his bridge flickered and went out. Around him, control stations began displaying error messages in languages his crew had never seen. The quantum computers that controlled every aspect of his flagship were suffering systematic failures that made no logical sense. Engineering, report, Kithvar demanded. Admiral, we're experiencing cascade failures throughout the ship's primary systems. Our computers are trying to process some kind of data that doesn't conform to any known mathematical principles. Turner felt his consciousness expanding through the alien ship's network, his human brain pattern spreading like wildfire through systems designed for perfect logical order. He could sense Maria and Chris doing the same thing aboard other vessels, their neural chaos multiplying and reflecting back on itself until the entire Zephyrian fleet began suffering critical malfunctions. The tide of battle was about to turn in the most unexpected way possible. The Zephyrian fleet began tearing itself apart as human neural patterns spread through their quantum computer networks like a digital plague. Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as ship after ship reported critical system failures that his engineers could not explain or repair. Jake. Turner felt his consciousness expanding through the alien flagship's entire computer system, his human brain creating chaos in machines designed for perfect order. Every thought he had generated electromagnetic interference that turned the ship's quantum processors into useless static generators. Around him, the crystalline computer cores began flickering and going dark as centuries of Zephyrian technology failed to process something as simple as human neural activity. Jake, can you hear me? Maria Santos called through the neural link. I'm in their weapons control center. Their charging systems are going completely insane. Chris Bell's voice joined the conversation from somewhere deep in another alien vessel. Same here. Their shields are fluctuating like crazy. I think we're actually winning this thing. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge as control stations exploded in showers of sparks around him. His perfect formation of 200 warships was dissolving into chaos as vessels lost propulsion, weapons, and life support systems. The quantum computers that had controlled Zephyrian technology for millennia were shutting down one by one, overwhelmed by electromagnetic patterns they had never been designed to process. All ships, emergency protocols, Kethavar commanded. Switch to backup systems and maintain weapons charge. Captain Zethmore's response came through bursts of static. Admiral, backup systems are also failing. Whatever is causing this interference, it's affecting every quantum processor in the fleet. For the first time in his 3,000-year military career, Kethavar felt something resembling fear. His species had conquered half the galaxy through technological superiority, but their greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. The Zephyrians had grown so dependent on quantum computers that they had no manual backup systems for critical ship functions. Captain Rodriguez watched the impossible happen through his damaged view screen. Alien ships that had seemed invincible just minutes earlier were now drifting helplessly through space, their weapon ports going dark as power systems failed. Several of the massive vessels had actually collided with each other as their navigation computers stopped working. Lieutenant Foster, "Are you seeing this?" Rodriguez asked his tactical officer. "Yes, sir. Enemy shields are down across their entire fleet. Their weapons have stopped charging and most of their ships appear to be dead in space." Rodriguez opened communications to what remained of Earth's fleet. "All vessels target the alien ships showing structural damage. Aim for hull breaches and what appear to be reactor housings." The surviving human ships, battered and nearly destroyed, suddenly found themselves facing enemies they could actually hurt. Antimatter torpedoes that had been useless against alien shields now struck unprotected hulls with devastating effect. Energy beams designed to crack asteroids punched through alien armor that was no longer reinforced by force fields. Jake Turner felt the alien flagship shuddering around him as human weapons finally began inflicting real damage. His neural implant was burning like fire in his skull, but he maintained his connection to the ship's computer core, spreading electromagnetic chaos through every system he could. Reached, Admiral Kethavar realized his flagship was dying when the artificial gravity failed and emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red shadows. Around him, his crew struggled with control panels that had become completely unresponsive. The quantum computers that regulated everything from life support to weapons targeting had suffered total cascade failure. "Engineering, switch to manual control," Kethavar ordered. The reply came from his chief engineer, whose voice carried notes of panic that no Zephyrian should have been capable of feeling. "Admiral, we don't have manual control systems. Our ships were designed to be operated entirely through quantum computer interfaces." Kethavar felt the horrible realization settling over him like a weight crushing his chest. The Zephyrian Empire had spent so many centuries perfecting their technology that they had forgotten how to operate their own ships without computer assistance. His people had become prisoners of their own advancement. On Earth, President Morrison watched satellite feeds showing the alien fleet's complete collapse. Ships the size of cities drifted powerless through space, while human fighters darted between them like insects attacking sleeping giants. The weapons that could have destroyed Earth's atmosphere were now cold and silent. Dr. Helen Carter stood beside the president, monitoring the electromagnetic signatures coming from the alien fleet. "Sir, their quantum computers are suffering permanent damage. The interference patterns from our pilots' neural implants have created feedback loops that are physically destroying their processing cores, General." Scott was already thinking about the next phase of the battle. "How long can our people maintain this interference?" "Not much longer," Carter replied. "Their neural implants are being pushed far beyond safe operating limits. We need to finish this quickly." Jake Turner heard Patricia Wells's voice through the neural link, though it seemed to come from very far away. "Jake, you need to get out of there now. Your brain activity is off the charts. Much more of this and the neural interface could cause permanent damage." Turner looked around the alien computer core, seeing crystal formations that had once pulsed with quantum energy, now lying dark and cracked. He had done what seemed impossible just hours earlier. He had turned humanity's most primitive technology, the electrical activity of the human brain, into a weapon that could destroy the most advanced computers in the galaxy. "Maria, Chris, you guys still with me?" Turner called. "Barely," Maria replied. "My head feels like it's going to explode, but their weapon systems are completely dead." Chris Bell's voice was weak but determined. "Same here. These aliens built their entire civilization around quantum computers, and now those computers can't handle something as basic as human thoughts. Admiral Kethavar watched his view screen flicker and die as the last functional systems aboard his flagship finally failed. Through the transparent metal of his bridge windows, he could see human ships moving to attack positions around his helpless vessel. The species he had dismissed as primitive insects was about to destroy the most powerful fleet the Zephyrian Empire had ever assembled. The Admiral activated his personal communicator, sending a message that would travel faster than light back to the Empire's homeworlds. "This is Admiral Kethavar of the 47th Conquest Fleet. Mission has failed. Human species possesses unknown technology that renders our quantum systems inoperable. Recommend immediate withdrawal from the sector and revision of threat assessment protocols." As human boarding parties began cutting through his ship's hull, Kethavar realized he was about to become the first Zephyrian admiral in history to lose an entire fleet to a species that still used chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. The Empire had sent him to erase Earth without warning, expecting routine annihilation. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Humanity had won their first interstellar war not through superior technology, but by being so primitive that their enemies' advanced systems could not cope with the electromagnetic chaos generated by human brains. The galaxy would never be the same.